Good morning, everybody. This is a slightly hoarse Sean Copeland. Today is Saturday, August the 27th, and welcome to a brand new edition of the Kingdom Driven CEO. Before we jump into today's topic, I want to apologize. I've had a little bit of a cold these last couple of days, and so my voice sounds a little deeper and more masculine than normal. So you guys, please forgive me, but I just couldn't wait to share today's podcast with you. Number one, because I want to share with you the number one ingredient for success in our world. And I want to do it by telling you a remarkable story. So you guys know that I am a Little League baseball fanatic. I just love it. I think it's everything that's right about our world. Well, the Texas team that beat my team, Oklahoma, in the finals of the Southwest region just lost to a team from Nolensville, Tennessee. And it was largely because a young man in the bottom of the first inning crushed a 2-1 pitch over the center field fence, giving them a 4-1 advantage. He hit a grand slam. But the most amazing thing about this game was that the young man that hit the grand slam, his name is Josiah Porter, and he is legally blind in his right eye. Now, their lead would hold up. They went on to win 7-1, and now they're going to be playing championship against Hawaii. They'll be big underdogs, but I'm telling you, I wouldn't count them out at all. But what was remarkable was that after they hit the grand slam, the ESPN reporter interviewed Josiah's parents. Their names were Brandon and Dina. They were in the stands, and they told a little bit about Josiah's story and talked about how he relied on his faith in God. They said God has a big thing to do with all of this, keeping our focus on Jesus walking on the water, like Peter walking on the water in the Bible, and being positive. This is his father speaking, Brandon. That's been something for Josiah that's just so critical to his story. We can't talk about this story without talking about his faith. Josiah stayed positive. Instead of focusing on the storm, the bad things, what he can't do, he focuses on what he can do. So what happened is back when Josiah was, I think he was 6 years old, and I think it was 2017, he accidentally walked into a tool shelf that was on the back of a work truck, and the corner of the shelf directly hit his right eye. Brandon said that he heard the screams. He said he'll never forget him. He was bleeding out of his eye. He said he got ice on him, put him in the truck. He drove super fast. He was holding his eye and crying. He said it was one of the worst days of his life. That night, Brandon, his dad, who used to be a pastor, and his mother prayed with their family. They talked about Matthew 14 and the Bible story Brandon referenced in the ESPN interview about Jesus and Peter walking on the water. Brandon said this was God telling us we couldn't look at the waves and the storm. If you trust Jesus, he will help you walk above the storm. If we kept looking back or saying Josiah won't be able to do this or that, that's looking at the storm. God was telling us to look at him. This was Josiah's new situation. It happened, and God is going to do something amazing with it. Pretty remarkable. He also talked about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in Daniel 3. He said God was able to deliver them from the fiery furnace, but even if he didn't, they wouldn't worship that statue. We knew our God could restore vision to Josiah's eye, but even if he doesn't, we will still worship God and trust that he has a plan for Josiah. They learned the next morning that his retina was not detached, and doctors could possibly save the eye, maybe even allowing for some sight. Now, 5 surgeries later, Josiah has very limited sight in that right eye. He has to battle scar tissue and calcium buildup, and he has occasional cornea scraping procedures done, but it allows him to continue playing baseball. He plays it extremely well. In addition to the grand slam that he hit, he was a participant in a perfect game that they threw in the Southeast Regional, and in his 3 relief innings, he struck out all 9 batters. He is really, really a good player. But think about how strong this young man has to be not to allow his injury to define him. And that's the point that I want to make today. Grit is the number one predictor of success. Grit predicts success better than talent or luck or resources or where we were born or what our background is. There is nothing else that is more important. Grit is a unique blend of passion and perseverance. Passion is measured by the consistency of one's goals over an extended period of time, while perseverance is about putting in effort, overcoming challenges, and completing what has been started. And what's interesting is when it comes to achievement, effort actually counts twice. If you look, there's really two factors that go into achievement, and that is talent and effort. Talent times effort equals skill. Skill times effort equals achievement, and basically, so you double up the impact of effort when you were trying to achieve amazing things. In my life, I cannot tell you how many times I have wanted to give up. When we bought the bank back in 2008 and 9, it was terrible. The mortgage crisis had hit. I thought many, many times about just driving and never coming back home. And I just knew I had to stick it out. I couldn't let all of my investors and employees and my family down. And now our organization is $1.2 billion, 200 amazing employees, 7 markets, and just the most amazing culture ever. William James said, "The human individual lives usually far within his limits. He possesses powers of various sorts which he habitually fails to use, and it's because we just give up too quickly." There are 4 psychological assets to grit. Grit develops as we begin to shape our life philosophy, as we learn to recover from setbacks, and we clarify the high-level goals worthy of our persistence. Here are kind of the 4 assets. First comes interest. Passion begins with an intrinsic enjoyment of what we do. We have to love what we are doing. Next comes the capacity to practice. We have to persevere every single day and have a daily discipline of investing effort to improve. The third is purpose. Passion is driven by doing work that matters. It's difficult to sustain effort without finding purpose in our work. And then the final one is hope. Hope defines and enhances the other 3 elements, and it keeps us going even when things can become very, very difficult. It is possible to develop all 4 of these assets, but a lot of it is just digging deep from within and not giving up when things get difficult. When we have a vision, when we know where we are going, we cannot allow the short-term challenges to put us aside. Now, just a couple of misconceptions before I go. Misconception 1 is that people with grit tend to complete everything that they start, and that is not true. There are times when even people with grit realize that they're going down the wrong path, or they are, exerting influence or effort in an area that is not fruitful. So we all have to be smart. But when we are committed to something, we cannot give up. The second misconception is that natural talent isn't real, so we can just ignore it. Well, that's not the case either. I mean, I would never be an NBA basketball player, or a NFL pro football player. I mean, there are certain things where ability certainly does factor in. However, what we are saying here is that grit and effort and passion can take us to a much higher level than we ever thought possible, even further than many of us realized that we could. And then finally, misconception 3, we should aim to identify our passion early in life. Sometimes it takes us a lot of time. to realize, what our God-given purpose and passion is. It took me a very long time to understand that my real purpose and passion is to bring God into businesses and to help business owners and leaders to understand that you can do that in a way that is very sensitive, to those who you work with. You don't want to force anything on anybody, but it is magic when you bring God's love into your business. So we need to be patient. Start by sowing the seeds of interest. Don't rush the process. Focus on developing practical experience and just kind of see where that leads, and continually ask the Holy Spirit to show you what your passion is, what your direction should be in life. When you take passion and you combine it with effort, and that becomes grit, I am telling you, you can do things in this life that you will never believe. I think there's somebody out there listening to this podcast today who's just about to give up on your dream. It's something that has been planted in your heart by God. It's been difficult and you are ready to stop. I want to encourage you to not do that. God will give you the strength to get through what you are dealing with today. So thank you so much for joining us for this awesome edition of the Kingdom Driven CEO.